What does a Hollywood A-lister have in common with one of the music industry's most controversial figures? A newly unsealed court transcript just linked Jennifer Lawrence to Diddy in a way no one saw coming. From secret deals to a sudden courtroom twist, this story is unraveling fast, and the fallout could be massive. You won't believe what the judge said when the truth came out. It began, as many modern scandals do, with a leak. In the early hours of a rainy Tuesday morning, a torrent of confidential court documents made their way onto the encrypted message board of a niche whistleblower forum. The uploader remained anonymous, using a screen name traced to a Swiss VPN, but the files were unmistakably real. Court headers, federal seals, confidential stamps, and tucked between pages of legalese and deposition transcripts, a name that no one expected to find: Jennifer Lawrence. Within minutes, screenshots were flooding Twitter. 10 minutes later, Reddit threads were dissecting the file structures. By the half-hour mark, TMZ had issued a breaking update. Leaked docs reveal shocking celebrity ties to Diddy's legal saga, Oscar winner named. The documents appeared to be part of an ongoing federal case against Sean Diddy Combs, tied to alleged financial misconduct involving offshore entities, intellectual property theft, and unlawful surveillance. Most of the documents were dry, spreadsheet records, testimonies, emails, but several referenced Exhibit K, an attachment sealed from public view. One unredacted snippet revealed a line in Exhibit K's index: communications involving J. Lawrence, dates spanning March-June 2020. That was enough to ignite a wildfire. Within the hour, Variety and the Shade Room had picked up the story. Variety's headline was cautiously worded: "Documents leak raises questions about Jennifer Lawrence's name in Diddy case," while the Shade Room leaned all the way in, "Not J-Law in the mix." Leaked docs say she's tied to Puff Daddy's court drama. Screenshots of the document went viral, some real, others doctored in a haze of Photoshop and conspiracy. Online detectives went to work. Twitter users cross-referenced Jennifer's public schedule in 2020, noting a 3-month gap in press appearances. A Redditor found a LinkedIn profile claiming to work for a Diddy-owned media company that listed Lawrence as a strategic consultant. Theories flew wildly, from covert business deals to scandalous personal ties, to her being a potential whistleblower herself. By noon, Jennifer's name was trending #1 globally on X. Her PR team stayed silent for most of the day. Paparazzi swarmed her Beverly Hills estate. At least 5 helicopters were spotted overhead. Footage captured her assistant shielding her face with a large tote bag as they entered a tinted SUV. TMZ ran the photo with the caption, "She knows something." At 4:43 p.m., Jennifer's team released a brief statement via her publicist's Instagram story, plain white text on a black background. "We are aware of the reports and ongoing situation. No further comment at this time." That was it. No denial. No clarification. Just an admission of awareness, cryptic enough to stir the pot further. Talk shows ran emergency panels. Joe Rogan bumped his planned guest and went live with a former FBI profiler. Theories ranged from her being romantically involved with Diddy to claims she had invested in a now-bankrupt venture with criminal ties. Some speculated she was a key witness. Others, that she had been blackmailed. By nightfall, screenshots of supposed email threads and Slack messages between Jennifer and Diddy's legal counsel had flooded social media, none verifiable. Someone even posted a deep-fake video of her speaking about the case, convincing enough to fool a portion of TikTok. But underneath all the noise, a more disturbing undercurrent was forming. Journalists who had initially dismissed the leak now reported pressure from their editorial boards to go soft or wait for clearance. Anonymous sources hinted at powerful media figures trying to suppress certain angles. The name Exhibit K began to take on mythical status online. What was in it? Why was it sealed? And more importantly, why did it mention Jennifer Lawrence multiple times? The FBI issued a statement late in the evening, confirming the documents appeared authentic but declined to comment further. Legal experts on MSNBC speculated that the leak could jeopardize the entire investigation if witnesses were named improperly. Meanwhile, Diddy's legal team issued a full-page statement through a major PR firm, condemning the leak as reckless and damaging, asserting that none of the leaked materials implicated him in criminal activity. Notably, the statement did not mention Jennifer Lawrence at all. As the world digested the chaos, one final twist emerged before midnight. A small-time tech blogger based in Vancouver posted a screenshot showing metadata from one of the leaked PDFs. It had been created and exported from a machine registered under the name JLawrence03. The blogger was immediately accused of faking it, but when independent security experts ran tests on the document's hash values, They matched. The file had indeed been created on a device with that name. A storm was coming, and everyone knew it. Jennifer Lawrence was no longer just Hollywood royalty. She had just become a central figure in one of the most high-profile court dramas of the decade. And the world was watching, frame by frame, word by word, breath by breath. By sunrise, the internet had already shifted into a full-scale manhunt for the origins of Jennifer Lawrence's connection to Diddy. But it wasn't investigative reporters or legal experts who uncovered the next clue. It was a 2019 tabloid piece from a barely-trafficked Hollywood gossip blog titled Power Dinner or Power Couple. Diddy and J-Law spotted at NYC hotspot. Back then, the story was brushed off as pure clickbait. No reputable outlets followed it, no photos were published, and Jennifer's representatives had dismissed it as categorically false. But in light of the newly leaked court documents, this forgotten blog post suddenly resurfaced with explosive new relevance. The post described a supposed dinner between Jennifer and Diddy at the Lowell, a luxury boutique hotel tucked discreetly into Manhattan's Upper East Side. The blog claimed that the pair arrived separately, dined in a private suite, and left through separate exits nearly 4 hours later. At the time, few believed it. The idea of America's sweetheart and the hip-hop mogul sharing anything beyond a handshake seemed too far-fetched. Until now. A Reddit user, known for digging into celebrity timelines, matched the supposed date of the dinner, April 17, 2019, with a suspicious gap in Jennifer's known appearances. That same night, she had been scheduled to attend a charity gala in Los Angeles. But for unknown reasons, she'd cancelled at the last minute, citing a scheduling conflict. Now, that conflict looked like it had a name, and a very expensive wine list. Within hours, the Lowell Hotel began trending. The hotel itself issued a carefully worded statement: "We respect the privacy of our guests and do not comment on past or present visitors." But that didn't stop the digital sleuths. A former hotel staffer came forward anonymously, claiming to have seen Jennifer Lawrence in the private dining suite that night. She was dressed down. Hoodie, no makeup, hair up, but unmistakably her. And she wasn't alone. When asked who was with her, the answer came without hesitation: Puffy. I mean, Diddy, whatever he goes by now. The internet exploded. Then, another bomb dropped, this time from a far more credible source. A bodyguard formerly employed by Diddy gave an off-the-record interview to an investigative podcast known for exposing celebrity secrets. He claimed that not only had the dinner happened, but it was far from casual. They had a file, he said. Not food, not drinks. They sat across from each other with a file folder on the table. Looked like contracts or something. Real serious. She didn't laugh once. The file. The sealed Exhibit K? Suddenly, the pieces were coming together. A private dinner that no one was supposed to know about. A file exchanged. And now, 3 years later, both names appearing in confidential court documents. As the frenzy escalated, a new revelation emerged, one that would fan the flames even further. A 10-second clip of surveillance footage, leaked by a third-party cybersecurity group, began circulating on Discord and private Telegram channels. The grainy video showed a woman bearing a striking resemblance to Jennifer exiting the Lowell via a side door. Moments later, a man, likely Diddy, emerged from the same door, adjusting his coat and walking quickly toward a waiting SUV. Though no audio existed and their faces were partially obscured, the internet was unanimous. It was them. The video hit Twitter within minutes, then TikTok. Side-by-side comparison clips popped up everywhere. Here's Jennifer walking in Venice last month. Same gait, same hoodie slouch. Check the ear structure. That's Diddy, no doubt. The debate raged for hours, but eventually most people stopped arguing and started accepting. Then came the biggest wave of speculation yet. Why? Why would Jennifer Lawrence, a major actress known for her squeaky clean image, be in a private, off-the-record meeting with one of music's most controversial figures? A former entertainment lawyer floated a theory during a late-night interview: this could have been a strategic partnership. Maybe a business venture. But given the nature of Diddy's current legal woes, the fact that this dinner was off books, and that court documents now reference her, it raises serious questions. Paparazzi staked out both Jennifer's and Diddy's homes. Jennifer's fiancé, now husband, was seen leaving their LA property alone, face grim. Meanwhile, Diddy was reportedly holed up in Miami, refusing to comment. Social media became a war zone of fan theories. They are business partners and it went sideways. He's got something on her. That dinner was a blackmail setup. She helped fund something shady without knowing it, now she's implicated. Among the more outlandish theories was a rumor that Jennifer had been trying to produce a documentary about power and corruption in the music industry. That maybe she'd gone to Diddy for insider access. Others claimed she'd invested money into a company linked to him, without realizing it was part of a wider scheme now under federal investigation. Still, none of it was confirmed. And yet, the silence from both camps was deafening. By Friday, news networks had dispatched reporters to the Lowell. A local street artist painted a mural nearby, Jennifer and Diddy sitting opposite each other at a table, a briefcase between them, both with blank expressions. Tourists began taking selfies with it. Despite the surreal nature of it all, the tone had changed. This was no longer tabloid gossip. It was now shaping up to be a genuine legal saga, one with reputations, careers, and possibly freedom on the line. As night fell, ABC News reported that a subpoena was likely to be issued for Jennifer in the coming days. The anchor's voice trembled slightly as she read the breaking update. At the heart of this growing storm stood one undeniable truth: the 2019 dinner happened. And whatever was said or signed that night, whatever was passed across that table, was now coming back to haunt them both. As the media swirled with theories and reactions, the narrative took another turn, this time away from paparazzi photos and viral videos, and into something more concrete: paper trails. It started with a midnight post on LinkedIn. A user named E. Franco claimed to have worked briefly as an executive assistant at a media startup in 2020, a startup allegedly owned by an umbrella corporation tied to Diddy. In a now-deleted post, they recounted an NDA-heavy work environment, frequent VIP visitors, and most damning of all, an internal document referring to Lawrence J. Consulting Partner, 6-month term, Strategic Content Division. Screenshots of the post made the rounds within minutes. Though the original was scrubbed, the damage was done. By morning, a team of independent investigators from a financial fraud blog confirmed that the company in question, Capital Motion Media, was indeed a Delaware-registered LLC listed as a subsidiary of a larger holding group partially owned by Diddy's empire. Journalists immediately pulled up registration filings, SEC disclosures, and shareholder records. Nothing overtly listed Jennifer Lawrence. But then came a key detail buried in an accounting footnote: consultant expense paid to JL Productions, LLC, $280,000. JL Productions. That was the name of Jennifer's personal company used for brand licensing and project development. The match was unmistakable. The payment, made in April 2020, was listed under Strategic Services, Creative Advisory. But according to people familiar with Capital Motion's operations, no such project ever publicly materialized. That prompted a question: what was Jennifer actually advising? Former employees began speaking under anonymity. They recalled unnerving security protocols for meetings involving the consultant. Visitors weren't allowed to bring phones, and all staff were asked to vacate entire floors during these high-level sit-downs. One former project manager recounted a particularly strange incident: there was this one time we had to clear out the conference room last minute. All I knew was that someone big was coming. Afterward, the room smelled like Chanel No. 5 and Cuban cigars. More damning was the claim that a file cabinet containing project outlines tied to the consultant had been seized by federal agents during a quiet raid 3 months earlier, an event that had never been made public until now. When pressed, Jennifer's agency issued a second, more calculated statement. Jennifer Lawrence engages in a range of industry consultations through JL Productions. The referenced agreement involved creative development advisory and concluded in mid-2020. Any suggestion of impropriety is false and defamatory. But the statement raised more questions than it answered. Why had the consulting gig been kept secret? Why had Jennifer never mentioned it in any interview, despite her well-documented passion for behind-the-camera roles? Why was the company she worked with now under federal scrutiny? And then, the emails leaked. A tech watchdog organization posted a tranche of internal emails allegedly obtained from a data breach of Capital Motion Media servers. The emails, unverified but disturbingly specific, referenced a series of meetings coded as Ophelia Protocol. The attendees? Only 2 names repeated throughout: *S.C., assumed to be Sean Combs, and JL. In one message dated May 6, 2020, a Capital Motion executive wrote, "JL's notes are incorporated. SC said to keep phrasing ambiguous but directional. Stress that optics remain clean. Emphasize legitimacy of funding source." Another from a week later read, "The consultant is becoming nervous. Wants clarification on legal boundaries before next review." She's asked for indemnity language, please expedite.
Legal experts weighed in. The language was vague but damning.
The emphasis on optics and indemnity pointed to concerns about how the venture might appear under scrutiny. And now that it was under scrutiny, every word took on new meaning.
Social media was quick to draw conclusions.
She knew, read one post with over 150,000 likes. Jennifer was in deep, and now she's in deeper, said another. Meanwhile, Jennifer's IMDb page was quietly updated. The credit for creative consultant, unreleased Diddy project, 2020, had been added, then removed within 30 minutes. But screenshots confirmed what many already suspected. There had been something real here. TMZ finally confirmed through two independent sources that the deal had involved an experimental content platform Diddy was attempting to launch, codenamed Illume. The platform was aimed at blending short films, music, and political commentary. But it had stalled early in development, allegedly due to investor withdrawal and internal disagreements. Yet some insiders suggested that the project wasn't shelved, it was buried.
That the funding channels were suspect.
That there were hush agreements. And that Jennifer, knowingly or not, had been sitting on a powder keg. A final twist came late in the week, when the New York Times published a special report citing multiple sources close to the investigation. According to the report, the consulting contract Jennifer signed was allegedly issued through a shell company, one now confirmed to be part of a money laundering probe. The government was looking not just at Diddy's entertainment businesses, but at the people who touched them. And Jennifer Lawrence? She'd left fingerprints. By Sunday evening, a quiet but powerful shift was happening in Hollywood. Studio executives began requesting internal audits of past contracts. Agents called emergency meetings with their clients. Lawyers scrambled to review dormant NDAs. The industry had seen celebrity scandals before, but this one was cutting through the PR fog like a blade. It was no longer just about what Jennifer did, it was about what she might have enabled.
She hadn't been named as a suspect. Not yet.
But with sealed exhibits being scrutinized by federal prosecutors, documents linking her LLC to questionable cash flow, and former colleagues hinting at her presence in clandestine meetings, it was becoming harder and harder for the public to separate Jennifer Lawrence, the actress, from Jennifer Lawrence, the potential accomplice.
For days, the world waited.
Despite mounting evidence, Jennifer Lawrence had remained curiously untouched by the legal machinery closing in on Diddy. The headlines were relentless, the conspiracy theories multiplying, and talk shows now included legal analysts alongside entertainment commentators. But there had still been no official word from the courts, until 9:02 a.m. on a cool Monday morning. CNN broke it first, breaking, Jennifer Lawrence subpoenaed in Diddy federal case.
The story hit like a shockwave.
The subpoena, issued by a federal court in New York, demanded Jennifer's appearance in front of a grand jury investigating financial irregularities, unregistered partnerships, and the flow of funds between affiliated shell corporations. While she wasn't listed as a defendant, the language was damning. The testimony of Ms. Lawrence is essential to establishing a timeline of knowledge and involvement. By 10:30 a.m., a swarm of paparazzi had formed outside the offices of Lawrence and Finch LLP, the high-profile Beverly Hills law firm representing Jennifer. She was seen leaving the building just after noon, sunglasses on, jaw set, lips pressed into a line of tense resolve.
But it wasn't the photo itself that sparked headlines.
It was what the cameras caught in her hand, a crisp white envelope marked United States District Court, subpoena. That image appeared on every screen across America by evening. Her legal team scrambled. Within hours, they filed an emergency motion to quash the subpoena, arguing that Jennifer's involvement in the business dealings under scrutiny was limited to routine creative consultation and that compelling her testimony could irreparably damage her reputation and privacy without material legal necessity. The court rejected it in less than 24 hours.
The judge's response was biting.
The privilege of fame does not place one beyond the reach of accountability. Ms. Lawrence's visibility in this matter is not incidental, nor is it speculative. Her testimony is necessary.
News anchors replayed the quote like it was a movie line. Internet memes exploded.
One viral post mocked Jennifer's old Hunger Games role. May the subpoenas be ever in your favor.
But this wasn't satire anymore. This was real.
Behind the scenes, tensions were boiling. Diddy's legal team had reportedly been lobbying hard to keep certain documents sealed, especially Exhibit K, now confirmed to include financial statements and communications involving Jennifer. But the judge ruled those exhibits admissible, citing overwhelming public interest and relevance to the integrity of the proceedings. That ruling cracked the case wide open. Within hours, details from the sealed exhibits were leaked to the press, whether by accident or design remained unclear. Among the revelations, multiple emails between Jennifer's LLC and Capital Motion executives discussing risk optics, timeline manipulation, and back-channel project deployment. A wire transfer receipt showing $85,000 deposited into JL Productions from a Belize-based intermediary. A draft NDA between Jennifer and a now-defunct subsidiary of Diddy's business empire, with language suggesting retroactive confidentiality for 2020 projects of a sensitive nature.
Journalists pounced.
Commentators debated whether Jennifer had been duped, complicit, or just tragically naive.
Even her most loyal fans were split. Some claimed she was being dragged into a mess created by more powerful men.
Others argued that silence was no longer innocence.
And silence was all they were getting. Jennifer's team went dark. No press appearances. No statements. No denials.
Just one brief update from a source close to the situation, quoted by The Hollywood Reporter.
Jennifer is devastated. She never imagined her name would be in a federal courtroom.
She wants the truth out, but she has to play this carefully. Meanwhile, Diddy's team was moving aggressively. In a series of backdoor negotiations, they attempted to exclude Jennifer's communications from being used as direct evidence, claiming they fell under creative privilege, a loosely defined gray area where industry collaborations are protected from legal disclosure.
The judge wasn't having it.
The court will not carve out a celebrity exception, he wrote in his final ruling that week. If the content is relevant, it will be heard. The world braced for the spectacle. Late-night talk shows were already building segments around the coming testimony. From Mockingjay to MIC Drop, Jennifer heads to court. Read one Chiron.
TikTok flooded with courtroom makeup tutorials.
Legal influencers gained thousands of new followers overnight, all promising exclusive breakdowns of the Lawrence subpoena. But beneath the entertainment value was a far more chilling reality. A-list celebrities began whispering. If someone like Jennifer could be dragged into this, who was next?
Whose name might be in the next exhibit?
Rumors swirled of other actresses, producers, even a sitting senator whose campaign took money from one of the same shell companies. And then, quietly, Netflix paused production on Jennifer's upcoming limited series.
No announcement. No press release. Just a quiet TBD update on the project page. It didn't go unnoticed. Outside the courthouse, protesters began to gather. Some held signs reading "Justice for Jennifer," while others called her a hypocrite. The front lines of fandom had turned into a battlefield.
But inside her inner circle, preparations were underway. Her lawyers were reviewing hundreds of documents, emails, financial statements. Crisis PR teams rehearsed possible statements for after the testimony. Even wardrobe consultants were brought in, choosing every outfit she'd wear from the moment she entered the courthouse. It had become, in every sense of the word, a performance. But this time, the stage was real. The consequences permanent. As Friday approached, court reporters waited in shifts outside the federal building. Rumors swirled that she'd testify next week, but no confirmation came. And still, neither she nor Diddy had uttered a single public word about each other. Until, just before midnight, Diddy posted a cryptic message on Instagram. A black screen. White text. One sentence.
Some things aren't meant to be spoken.
But they are meant to be heard.
The comments exploded. Speculation returned full force.
And somewhere in a dimly lit corner of the internet, someone posted a warning.
The courtroom won't just erupt.
It's going to implode. It was the trial Hollywood never saw coming, until it was too late to look away. By 7 a.m., the federal courthouse in downtown Manhattan was swarming with press vans, police barriers, and lines of spectators wrapping around the block. The name Jennifer Lawrence had appeared on the witness docket, and word had spread like wildfire. Reporters from the New York Times, People, Vice, and Deadline were all present, shoulder to shoulder with gossip vloggers and YouTubers live streaming in front of the courthouse steps. Inside, the courtroom was packed to capacity. Reporters and designated media rose, attorneys bristling with urgency, and a judge already weary of the circus surrounding the case. A hushed anticipation hovered over the gallery. And then, at 9:17 a.m., she entered. Jennifer Lawrence. Dressed in a charcoal gray suit, subdued, elegant, and completely unlike her usual red carpet self, she walked into the room flanked by two attorneys. Her hair was pinned back tightly.
No makeup beyond the bare minimum.
Her expression, unreadable. If she was afraid, she hid it well. A few cameras were permitted, their lenses clicking quietly as she approached the witness stand. Everyone in the room leaned forward. Sworn in, seated, mic adjusted, then silence. The lead prosecutor began. Ms. Lawrence, are you familiar with Capital Motion Media? Yes, she answered, her voice clear and controlled. I was retained as a consultant through my company, JL Productions, in 2020. Can you describe the nature of your consultation?
She paused. Creative strategy. Platform ideation.
I was asked to offer input on a multi-format streaming project. And who asked you to provide this input?
Another pause.
Mr. Combs. Sean Combs.
A murmur rippled through the courtroom.
Diddy, seated just meters away, didn't move. He stared directly at her, jaw tight, his lawyers scribbling furiously on notepads. Ms. Lawrence, the prosecutor continued, are you aware of any financial irregularities connected to that project? She shifted in her seat. I became concerned after the second meeting. There were discussions that felt outside of the usual boundaries of a consulting arrangement. Can you be specific? She hesitated, only for a breath, and then delivered the line that would lead every headline by noon. There were references to optics management, controlled leaks, and ensuring any transaction looked clean, even if it wasn't.
Gasps. Audible.
The judge pounded his gavel.
Order, he barked.
Next outburst, I clear the room.
Jennifer maintained her composure,
but something in her expression, perhaps the tightening of her fingers around the arm of the witness chair, betrayed that the moment wasn't easy. The prosecution displayed printed emails on screen. Messages between Jennifer's assistant and executives from Capital Motion Media, discussing indemnity clauses, encrypted calls, and something referred to only as the Lisbon folder. What is the Lisbon folder? The prosecutor asked. Jennifer exhaled slowly.
It was a project file. Physical only.
I was told never to photograph or copy it. It included outlines of planned media content, influencer involvement, and a list of preferred amplifiers.
Preferred amplifiers, the prosecutor echoed. Yes, she said carefully.
High-profile individuals who could circulate controlled narratives through their platforms.
Whispers again.
The judge raised his hand, this time without speaking.
A warning.
And who created this folder? The prosecutor asked.
Jennifer glanced across the courtroom at Diddy.
It came from his team.
It was delivered to me directly.
No digital trail. And did you keep a copy?
No, she said.
But I made notes.
That was the cue.
Her attorney passed a sealed envelope to the bailiff. Inside, a handwritten document dated May 2020. It detailed Jennifer's concerns about potential legal exposure and her decision to end the consulting arrangement early. It was damning, not for her, but for Diddy's team. The prosecution was clearly emboldened. They leaned into the momentum. Were you aware that Capital Motion Media was funded in part by offshore accounts linked to shell companies now under federal investigation?
Jennifer nodded once.
That information was not disclosed to me at the time. But in retrospect, yes. There were red flags I ignored. Why did you ignore them?
Her voice softened.
Because I didn't want to believe someone that powerful could be operating that carelessly. Or that dangerously.
The courtroom buzzed again. But the judge let it go this time.
Even he seemed momentarily shaken. Then came the defense. Diddy's lead attorney stood, tall and ice-cold. His tone was calm, but loaded. Ms. Lawrence, would you describe yourself as media-savvy?
I work in the media, she replied.
Yes. Would you say you understand public narrative manipulation?
I'd say I understand storytelling, she corrected.
But I don't control the narrative. Especially not now.
He smiled thinly. Fair enough.
Ms. Lawrence, is it true that in April 2020 you requested a payment increase, citing the potential PR risk of the project?
Yes, she said calmly. I did.
Because I realized if anything about this project went public, I'd be asked questions I didn't have clear answers to. And isn't it true you accepted that increased payment?
I did.
And you deposited it into an account controlled solely by JL Productions. That's standard practice, she said, eyes locked on him. You're reaching.
The judge glanced up at that. Counsel, he warned.
The defense attorney took a breath, then lowered his voice. Ms. Lawrence, are you testifying here today to protect your public image?
No, she said. I'm here because I know what I saw.
And I know what I was a part of, even if it wasn't intentional.
He stepped back.
No further questions.
The silence that followed was electric.
Jennifer stepped down from the stand, escorted by a court officer, her heels echoing on the floor like a metronome of tension.
She never looked back at Diddy.
As she exited, one reporter in the gallery was overheard whispering to another. She just shifted the entire case.
Outside, the crowd roared. Chants, signs, screams. Some cheering her name, others calling her a sellout. In the madness, one thing was clear.
Jennifer Lawrence had taken the stand, and the courtroom would never be the same again. The testimony had barely settled in the public's consciousness when another tremor shook the case, this time not from the witness stand, but from a speaker system embedded in the courtroom wall. It was the following day, and the trial had resumed promptly at 9 a.m. The media circus had grown louder outside, with satellite vans stacked like dominoes along the street and TikTok live streams running 24/7 under hashtags like #JLawUnsealed and #DiddyCallsBack. But no one, not even the prosecution, was prepared for what came next. The prosecutor approached the bench with a sealed flash drive marked confidential, "Do not duplicate." With the judge's permission, the file was introduced into evidence. A hush blanketed the room as court technicians connected the drive to the courtroom's AV system. The lights dimmed slightly. The judge leaned forward. "Play the file." What followed was a 3-minute, 14-second audio clip, scratchy, compressed, but unmistakably real. A male voice first, smooth and low.
"Diddy, we just need to make sure everything is aligned. We can't afford any noise." Then a pause.
A second voice replied, clear and composed, "Jennifer's." "Jennifer, you said the Lisbon folder was already handled."
"Diddy, it was. Optics are under control. We cleaned house."
"Anyone talking, well, they won't be."
Gasps swept the courtroom.
"Jennifer, you mean, like permanently? That's not what I agreed to."
"Diddy, relax. It's just a figure of speech."
"But people need to stay in their lanes." "Jennifer, I'm not built for this kind of shit, Sean. I came here to consult on content, not crisis manage a cover-up."
Another pause. A slight rustle of paper. "Diddy, don't overthink this. It's a brand play. We sell the vision. People eat it up."
"You keep your name out of it, I keep mine elevated, and nobody gets dragged." "Jennifer, if this goes bad, I'm not going down with it. I want indemnity.
In writing."
"Diddy, it's already in motion."
The recording ended. The courtroom was dead silent.
Then chaos erupted.
Murmurs became shouting.
A handful of observers stood and had to be ushered out by marshals.
Reporters fired off tweets mid-sentence.
The judge slammed the gavel repeatedly. "Order in the court." "I said order."
But it was too late. The clip was out.
Every media outlet on the planet now had a copy, thanks to the court's live feed.
It hit social media like a meteor. Within minutes.
CNN Chiron. Breaking. Secret call links Jennifer Lawrence to Diddy cover-up language. Twitter. She said I'm not built for this shit.
She knew.
TikTok. Lip syncs of the phone call began surfacing before the clip even finished playing in court.
Jennifer wasn't present that day.
Her team had arranged a private follow-up meeting with the judge for clarification and review. But her absence only fueled speculation. Was she hiding? Preparing a statement?
Or lawyering up?
Her lawyers were quick to respond during a recess. The recording presented in court today is misleading, lacks context, and appears heavily edited. Ms. Lawrence categorically denies participating in or condoning any illegal activity. We are working with audio forensics experts to confirm the file's authenticity.
But no one was listening to the legalese.
The public had already made up its mind. Meanwhile, Diddy sat in court stone-faced, one hand pressed against his temple, the other drumming slowly on the table. His legal team said nothing publicly, but it was clear they hadn't expected this. The phone call, authenticated or not, painted a picture they couldn't afford to leave unchallenged. Later that afternoon, a forensic audio expert took the stand on behalf of the prosecution. After an hour of jargon, waveform comparisons, metadata analysis, spectral frequency patterns, his conclusion was simple. There is no evidence that this audio was manipulated. If it was edited, it was done with such sophistication that our systems could not detect tampering.
That statement echoed like a gunshot.
Outside, protesters grew louder, angrier. One side held signs that read "Jaw lied" while another raised banners that said "Believe Jennifer."
The crowd had become tribal, emotional, explosive.
Meanwhile, inside the entertainment industry, a quiet unraveling was underway. Jennifer's agents at CAA reportedly held emergency calls with studio heads. A producer for her next film project announced an indefinite delay due to unforeseen scheduling issues. A luxury brand dropped her endorsement less than 24 hours after the call went public.
But in the midst of collapse, another faction emerged.
Fans began dissecting the call frame by frame, arguing that Jennifer's tone implied fear, not complicity. That she had warned Diddy, not enabled him. That she had been dragged into something darker than she ever agreed to. Podcasters and TikTokers seized on one specific line. "I'm not built for this kind of shit."
To some, it was cowardice.
To others, it was a whistleblower's cry for help. Jennifer's silence continued.
No Instagram posts. No statements. No paparazzi sightings.
But deep inside her legal war room, another decision was being made. An insider leaked word to Vanity Fair. Jennifer was considering filing her own civil suit against Diddy, his companies, and multiple intermediaries.
For damages. For defamation.
For being, in her words, a pawn in a dangerous game she never signed up for.
But first, she would have to return to court.
The judge ordered a supplemental testimony, ruling that the call had sufficient ambiguity to require further clarification under oath. The courtroom would once again brace for her reappearance. But this time, it wouldn't just be the public watching. It would be federal agents, rival legal teams, Hollywood executives, and victims from other ongoing investigations into Diddy's business empire. Because now, Jennifer wasn't just a star on the witness stand, she was a keystone to something far bigger. And with every word she chose, she could either expose the entire house of cards, or be crushed beneath it. The morning after the secret phone call was played in court, the world woke up different. What had once been a high-profile legal case with a few surprising celebrity connections was now a full-blown media inferno. The headlines weren't just about Diddy anymore. They were about Jennifer Lawrence's fall from grace, about celebrity complicity, about power, silence, and fear in an industry built on illusion. In less than 24 hours, Jennifer had lost 3 major endorsement deals. Dior pulled her from a global campaign set to launch next month. A streaming service quietly removed her name from an upcoming film's promotional rollout. And a luxury jewelry brand she'd fronted for years issued a terse statement. "We are re-evaluating our relationship with Ms. Lawrence in light of recent developments." Her image, once pristine, relatable, golden, was now being burned across the internet in slow motion. Meanwhile, Diddy cancelled 2 speaking engagements and was reportedly relocating temporarily for safety and privacy. His last public appearance, a charity gala in Miami, was now being investigated for its donor ties to several entities named in the investigation. TMZ reported that multiple shell corporations linked to Diddy's empire had become subjects of parallel inquiries. But while the headlines exploded, the emotional undercurrent was even more volatile. Outside the courthouse, the crowds doubled. Protesters held megaphones. Police brought in steel barricades. Fans and detractors clashed in real time. Some screamed, "Leave J-Law alone." Others chanted, "No more silence, no more stars above the law." The internet was equally fractured. Twitter trended with dueling hashtags. #Stand with Jennifer.
#She knew. #Justice for all. #Diddy Unmasked.
One of the most circulated TikToks featured a young woman crying as she played Jennifer's court audio on repeat. The caption read, "I grew up idolizing her. Now I don't know what to believe." But it wasn't just the public spiraling, the industry itself was cracking. Studio XX launched internal reviews of past celebrity contracts. Producers were instructed to scour old paperwork for Diddy-affiliated shell companies. A-list celebrities began quietly unfollowing both Jennifer and Diddy on Instagram. Among the names, Reese Witherspoon,
Zendaya, Leonardo DiCaprio.
In an eerie twist, a juror in the trial reportedly broke down off-camera, requiring medical attention. According to a leaked account, the juror had received anonymous messages online, implying that choosing the wrong side could ruin lives. It was unclear how the juror had been identified or whether the messages were coordinated, but the courtroom security was immediately tightened. The judge issued a public statement. "We will not allow the integrity of this courtroom to be undermined by outside forces. Any intimidation, real or implied, will be met with the full force of the law." At the same time, conspiracy theories flourished. Fringe podcasts suggested Jennifer's testimony was orchestrated by intelligence agencies. Others believed she was being framed, used to distract from even darker truths buried in the Diddy empire. One viral Reddit post claimed to have cracked Project Ophelia, a supposed code name for celebrity blackmail operations run through media partnerships.
But beneath the madness, there were real consequences.
A whistleblower from within Capital Motion Media stepped forward anonymously on a live stream. With a voice disguised and face blurred, they alleged that Jennifer had raised concerns in early 2020, not just about optics, but about funds being siphoned into non-transparent accounts. They claimed she had threatened to walk from the project unless changes were made, and that's when her name began to appear in the company's internal risk asset lists.
She didn't know everything, the whistleblower said.
But she knew enough to be dangerous.
Jennifer's team tried to turn the tide.
In a bold PR move, her publicist issued a 90-second video statement. Filmed in a minimalist room, with no makeup or editing, Jennifer stared straight into the camera.
"I was brought into a project I believed was about innovation. I was wrong.
I saw things I should have spoken out about sooner, and for that, I take responsibility. But I was never co-conspirator.
I was not part of a cover-up.
I am cooperating fully. The truth matters, even when it hurts."
Some called it powerful. Others called it calculated.
Either way, it did little to stem the rising tide.
Talk shows continued their saturation coverage. Podcasters speculated about what other celebrities might be exposed.
One lawyer-turned-YouTuber said it bluntly, "We're watching the Hollywood dominoes fall in real time."
And yet, amidst the chaos,
Jennifer was seen again. For the first time in days, she was photographed walking into the federal courthouse for a closed-door hearing with her attorneys.
Dressed in all black,
flanked by private security, she ignored questions. Her face was unreadable. Behind her, someone carried a box labeled Evidence, Personal. Inside, the meeting was reportedly tense. According to courthouse sources, prosecutors were now considering whether to classify Jennifer as a cooperative witness or a potential negligent enabler. Her fate, and how she'd be portrayed in the case's final arguments, would depend on the credibility of her supplemental testimony and the authenticity of the phone call played in court. It was a line Jennifer now had to walk, carefully, publicly, and under relentless scrutiny.
Because the frenzy wasn't ending. It was escalating.
A documentary producer from HBO Max announced development of a limited series titled Under Oath, The Fall of the Mask, with dramatized reenactments already in the works. Streaming services were bidding for exclusive rights to the courtroom footage. Every moment was being commodified, every breakdown monetized. And in the eye of that storm stood Jennifer Lawrence, no longer the darling of the red carpet, but the central figure in a legal and cultural reckoning. Whatever the verdict, one truth was already certain. The world would never see her the same way again.
It was the day the world had been waiting for. The line outside the courthouse stretched for blocks.
Camera drones hovered above, circling like vultures over an industry carcass. The world's biggest entertainment trial in decades, equal parts scandal, drama, and cultural flashpoint, was reaching its conclusion.
Inside, the federal courtroom was overflowing.
Every seat was filled, every press badge worn proudly by journalists who had camped out overnight. There was no whispering now, only tense silence, as the judge entered and called the session to order. The clerk read the charges against Sean Diddy Combs aloud. The accusations ranged from financial conspiracy to unlawful partnerships, with over a dozen counts laid out over 2 years of investigation. Then came the decision. The judge leaned forward, cleared his throat, and delivered a statement more blistering than any headline that had come before. This case has illuminated the dangerous intersections of power, fame, and silence. It has exposed the machinery behind the illusion. And while the court recognizes that not every individual intended harm, intent does not erase consequence. He continued, eyes briefly scanning the room. "Mr. Combs, the court finds you not guilty on the majority of criminal charges due to insufficient direct evidence. However, this is not an exoneration. It is a legal limitation. The moral stain remains. And this court recommends further civil investigation into the entities and individuals involved."
A gasp.
Then a strange, stuttering round of applause from a few Diddy supporters in the gallery, quickly silenced by a glare from the bench. But the room's attention wasn't focused on Diddy anymore.
It was on Jennifer Lawrence.
The judge turned toward her legal team and delivered a separate ruling, less dramatic, but no less impactful. "Ms. Lawrence, while you are not found criminally liable, this court does acknowledge that your actions, or lack thereof, allowed questionable conduct to proceed unchecked.
You are cleared of legal wrongdoing.
However, you now face a civil lawsuit brought forth by former employees of Capital Motion Media, seeking damages for your perceived negligence and professional endorsement of a now-defunct operation. Jennifer, seated quietly between her attorneys, nodded once. There was no outward reaction, just a stillness that said everything. It was over. And just beginning. Outside, the media storm reignited. CNN's Chiron read. Verdict: Diddy walks, jaw faces civil suit. TMZ pushed their headline out first. Jennifer Lawrence cleared, but not free. TikTok exploded within minutes. Clips of the judge's statements. Edits of Jennifer blinking in slow motion. Side-by-side comparisons of her testimony versus her movie roles. One viral video showed her in a Hunger Games scene, overlaid with the caption, "She volunteered, but not for this." In the hours following the verdict, the fallout spread fast. Diddy issued a vague statement. "Truth isn't always loud. I thank those who stayed quiet and stayed true." Jennifer's team released a carefully worded press release. "We respect the court's findings and are prepared to respond to all civil matters openly and truthfully." Her IMDb page was updated, again. Several upcoming projects now listed her as unattached. The court documents were unsealed that evening, revealing more context about Jennifer's involvement, emails showing she raised concerns, yes, but also accepted continued payments. Meeting notes in her own handwriting. A list of names she was allegedly briefed on in connection to the Lisbon folder. Still, public opinion was as divided as ever. Some defended her fiercely, calling her a scapegoat in a world of male-dominated corruption. Others said she'd sold her morality for power and access. The phrase "not guilty doesn't mean innocent" trended on Twitter for hours. And then came the documentary deals. Within 48 hours of the ruling, multiple streaming platforms confirmed production of exposés. Netflix, Icons and Indictments, Fame on Trial. Hulu, Hollywood Under Oath. HBO Max, The Consultant, The Jennifer Lawrence Tapes. Jennifer's face was already appearing in teasers, her voice clips remixed into ominous trailers, her image frozen in mid-expression. One platform even announced a companion podcast hosted by a former federal prosecutor. Meanwhile, the civil suit loomed. The plaintiffs, a group of 7 former employees of Capital Motion Media, alleged that Jennifer's public association with the company legitimized their employment that ultimately led to emotional trauma, financial loss, and professional blacklisting. The lawsuit demanded $12 million in damages. Jennifer's lawyers filed a motion to dismiss. But most legal analysts agreed. This trial would drag into 2026. Yet amidst all the destruction, a strange, quiet shift began to occur. People started rewatching her testimony, slowing down the audio, re-listening to the phone call, picking apart her phrasing. A new wave of opinion emerged, less about guilt or innocence, and more about entrapment. Did Jennifer truly understand what she'd walked into in 2020? Was she a star drawn into the orbit of a dangerous empire? Or did she enjoy the benefits of proximity and only regret it when things collapsed? A journalist from The Atlantic put it plainly. Jennifer Lawrence may never win back her old image. But what she does next will define whether she becomes a cautionary tale or a symbol of survival in a broken system. As for Diddy, he flew to Dubai 3 days later. Reports of a luxury compound rental leaked. He declined all interviews. And Jennifer? She disappeared from public view. Her final social media post was a black screen. One line written in white text. "Silence is not innocence. But it is where I begin." And with that, she was gone. But her shadow remained. In courtrooms. On screens. In conversations about fame, accountability, and what it really costs to stay silent when it matters most. The curtain had fallen. But the reckoning had only just begun.